Will Smith's life feels like a video game. Each level is harder than the last, from a broke kid in West Philadelphia to the biggest movie star on earth. To the most humiliated man on live television, Will Smith is the ultimate example of how success can be both a blessing and a curse. What follows are the 5 levels that built him, broke him, and eventually taught him who he really is. I call the first level the Dreamer. Before the fame, Will Smith was a young boy in Philadelphia who learned early that laughter could keep chaos away. His father was a military veteran who wanted to ran the household like a command post, strict, disciplined, often explosive. His mother, by contrast, was gentle but unyielding when it came to education and self-respect. Will grew up trying to please both, the father who demanded strength and the mother who expected excellence. He found his refuge in humor. Whenever tension filled the room, he turned it into a performance. People laughed, and for a moment, everything felt safe again. That instinct to protect through charm became the foundation of his entire identity. As a teenager, Will turned that charm into rhythm. Together with DJ Jazzy Jeff, he became the Fresh Prince, dropping fun, clever rhymes that everyone could dance to. In the late 80s, the duo exploded. Awards, parties, girls, everything seemed unstoppable. But success arrived faster than maturity, and soon money was slipping through his fingers. He was living like a superstar, but saving like a dreamer. As a result, he almost went bankrupt, owing almost $2.8 million to IRS. And for the first time, Will Smith faced failure on a scale he couldn't talk his way out of. It was a crash course in humility. That fall taught him something no fame could ever teach. If you want to build something that lasts, you have to start from nothing again, this time with intention. And that's when the door to his second level opened. A TV producer had seen something in him, a spark, a natural charisma. That opportunity would give birth to the name the world would never forget, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. When Will stepped into the world of sitcoms, he was rewriting his own story. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air wasn't simply a show about a kid from Philly moving in with rich relatives. It was a reflection of his real journey. The character was him, loud, funny, vulnerable, and desperate to be loved. But what made this level crucial was how Will treated it. On set, he wasn't content just to show up and perform. He studied every line, memorized entire scripts, and treated each episode like a masterclass. Behind the fun and energy was an unspoken fear, the fear of losing everything again. But what made this level crucial was how Will treated it. On set, he wasn't content just to show up and perform. He studied every line, memorized entire scripts, and treated each episode like a masterclass. Behind the fun and energy was an unspoken fear, the fear of losing everything again. As the show grew, so did his reputation. People across the world adored him. Kids copied his style. Parents loved his humor. Networks saw a goldmine. But beneath all that success, Will was quietly building an obsession with being perfect. He wanted to be the guy everyone admired, the one who never failed, never faltered, never broke character. That obsession would become both his engine and his prison. When the show ended, Will felt panic. He knew that television fame had an expiration date, and he refused to fade away with it. So he crafted a plan, a blueprint to become the biggest movie star on the planet. He studied audience psychology, analyzed box office trends, and asked himself one question: what makes people show up? By the time he was done, Will Smith wasn't just an actor, but a strategist. The next level was waiting, and he was prepared to conquer it. The King of Hollywood. Throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, Will Smith became the face of blockbuster cinema. Independence Day, Men in Black, Enemy of the State, Ali, one hit after another. Fans were literally in love with him. But nothing about this period was effortless. Will was operating like a machine, driven by an invisible need to stay untouchable. Every success made him more careful, more controlled. He'd mastered how to make people love him, but it came at a price. Genuine emotion became harder to access. Behind the spotlight, Will was trying to hold together a picture-perfect life. He married Jada Pinkett, raised children who also stepped into the public eye, and built a brand around strength, positivity, and motivation. He gave speeches about hard work, discipline, and belief, and people believed him because he seemed to have it all figured out. But there's a difference between happiness and maintenance. The more perfect his life looked, the more pressure he felt to protect it. He couldn't afford cracks in the image. Not as a husband, not as a father, not as a global icon. It's a strange kind of prison when the world celebrates you for being flawless while you're quietly falling apart behind the curtain. Will once said he built his life like a movie script, always chasing the climax, the big emotional payoff. But life doesn't follow a script, and neither does pain. Eventually, the man who once controlled every detail of his world reached a point where that control began to crumble. And soon, the moment that would shatter everything was waiting just around the corner. The 2022 Oscars were supposed to be the night everything came full circle. After decades of dedication, Will Smith was finally about to win the award every actor dreams of. The world watched as he smiled on the red carpet, the proud husband, the respected artist, the man who had earned it all. Then, in a matter of seconds, everything changed. The slap on Chris Rock was more than a single act of anger. It was the collapse of an entire identity. For years, Will had built his life around control. Control of image, control of emotion, control of narrative. And that night, all of it vanished in an instant. In the aftermath, Will faced the kind of public scrutiny that strips a person bare. Every quote, every video, every memory was dissected. But beyond the noise, there was something deeper happening, something raw and necessary. For the first time, he couldn't perform his way out of pain. He had to sit with it. He later spoke about that period as a kind of emotional surgery. Decades of unaddressed fear, shame, and guilt surfaced. He realized how much of his identity was built on the need to be loved, to be accepted, to be the hero. Which led to the last level, the fifth level, the search for peace. After the storm, Will disappeared from the public eye. No more stage smiles or motivational posts, just silence. And in that silence, he began to rebuild, not his image, but his understanding of himself. He turned to reflection, therapy, and stillness, things he'd avoided his entire life. He traveled, wrote, meditated, and started asking the kind of questions fame never lets you ask. Who am I when no one's watching? What do I actually value? What part of me still belongs to that scared kid from Philadelphia who used laughter to survive? When he returned with Emancipation, the tone was different. The performance wasn't about charisma, it was about vulnerability. You could sense a man who had walked through the fire and learned to stop running from the heat. This new Will Smith wasn't trying to prove anything. He wasn't chasing trophies or validation. He was chasing peace. In interviews, his words carried a new weight, quiet, measured, honest. He spoke about surrender, forgiveness, and acceptance, lessons that no amount of success can teach until you've lost it all. He admitted that his greatest fear wasn't failure, it was that people would see the real him and stop loving him. But somewhere along the way, he realized that peace doesn't come from being loved by the world. It comes from loving yourself enough to let the world misunderstand you. That's the final level, not victory, but release. Not fame, but freedom. Will Smith's story isn't just the story of a celebrity, it's a mirror for anyone who's ever chased perfection at the expense of peace. Each level of his life was a test, to see what happens when charm becomes armor, when success becomes identity, when pain finally demands to be heard. In a strange way, that night at the Oscars, at the moment everyone called his downfall, might have been his liberation, because only by breaking could he finally stop pretending. Will Smith's 5 levels are about awakening. The boy who learned to make people laugh to feel safe became the man who had to learn how to cry to feel human again. And somewhere between those two versions, he found the truth, that you don't really win the game of life by reaching the top, but by learning to live without the scoreboard. Because in the end, greatness isn't about perfection, it's about honesty. And for the first time, Will Smith is no longer chasing the next level. He's finally learning how to rest in this one.